Alright, so for your Walkaway 6 review, I'm just going to go through the questions and try to talk about them pretty quick. On the first five, you just draw an example of the sketch. And so an example of linear would be a line, like so. And where it says shape, just kind of describe what it says. So like that one's a line. An exponential looks something like that. And that one's kind of L-shaped. It's got that single curve there. Quadratics, they look like U's. So it looks something like that. Linear absolute values look like V's. So it'll come down to a point like so. And go up the other way, kind of look like it's bouncing off a wall. A reflection. And then linear piecewise is basically just made up of pieces of lines, but make sure you don't have any vertical lines, and also make sure it doesn't double back on itself, because if it does that, it is not a function, and all these need to be functions. Moving on to the right column there, with 1, 2, 3, 4, you're just taking the number that's in the parentheses, and you put it in the x value for the appropriate function. So since it says f of 3, you put it in the f function. So you gotta do 2 times 3 plus 5, that gives you 11. On 2, you're getting g of 1, so you're gonna put it in the g function, and you're gonna replace x with 1, so you got 1 squared minus 3. 1 squared is 1, subtract 3, you're at negative 2. On 3, you're going to put in negative 2 in for the x, and this one's a little bit more tricky because you have to be careful when you're squaring. Okay, make sure your negative 2 is in parentheses, and you'll square the negative 2 first. So negative 2 squared is 4, because negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, and then you got to subtract 3, and that gives you 1. F of negative 1, you're putting negative 1 in for the x there in the f function because it's f of negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So there you go. That's that one. Make sure you multiply to get your negative 2 and then you add your 5. Anyway, on 5 and 6, these ones, it gives you what f of x is equal to. So like this first one says equal to 9, so you're going to replace f of x with 9 and solve from there. So you're going to have 9 equals 2x plus 5. Okay, and you notice it says find the value of x, so it's telling you not to replace x, so you should be replacing f of x with the 9. And you're going to solve this like you have before, so subtract 5, you'll get 4 over here, 2x on this side, divide by 2. Divide by 2, you'll get 2 equals x, or x equals 2 for the answer for that one. This one, you're replacing f of x with 1, so you got 1 equals 2x plus 5. That should say plus 5. And then you got to subtract 5, divide by 2 again. And yeah, that one's pretty quick. I hope so for you guys. That's not a challenge at this point, but if it is, I hope you can follow these steps here. Make sure you subtract your 5 first, and then you'll divide by the number in front of x, which is 2. And negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Jumping over to the bottom on the right side there, you're supposed to get the slope, the intercept, and then write the equation that goes along with it. So when you're trying to get the slope, you have to look at the change in y, and you have to put that over the change in x, also known as rise over run. So the rise from negative 20 to negative 4 is positive 16. In case you didn't know how I got that, I can do negative 4 minus negative 20, and that gives me 16, because subtracting a negative is like adding. So negative 4 plus 20 gives you 16. And the change in the x from negative 1 to 0 is 1. And so my slope is 16 over 1, or just 16. The y-intercept is the y value when x is 0, which is right there. And so your y-intercept is negative 4. So when you write your equation, instead of having y equals mx plus b, you're going to have 16x, because that's what m is, the slope, and you're going to plus -4, which is the same thing as subtracting 4. Ta-da! Equation. Moving on to the back side there. Again, use the same steps. So get the slope, get the change in y over the change in x. That'd be 20 minus 12 over 2 minus 1. So y's over x, you're going to get 8 over 1. So slope is just going to be 8. The y-intercept. Notice how there's no line here where it says x is 0. And so you're going to have to figure it out. And something that's really handy in figuring this out is your slope that you already have right here. When y changes 8, x changes 1. Or when you change x1, you have to change y8. And so you notice here, I just need to go one step down. I need my x to go down 1. And so to go along with it, matching up with the slope, you just go down 8. Because -8 over -1 is going to give you your same slope. And so your x is going to be 0, your y in this case will be 4. So y-intercept is 4, the point 0, 4. Remember, it is a point. And so when you're writing your equation here, you're going to have y equals, instead of mx, you're going to have 8x. And instead of plus b, you're going to have plus 4, because 4 is the y-intercept part. Jumping down to the next ones, when you're identifying the domain and the range, domain is the x values, and you put them from least to greatest. So -1, 1, 3, 10. And since it's only a set list, like that, just those numbers, you can put it in the curly brackets. The range is the y's. And again, do it from least to greatest. So 2, 4, 5, 8. And curly brackets, because it's only those numbers and not the in-between ones. And this one, does it represent a function? Yes, it does. And that's because each x value gets assigned only one y value. 1 gets assigned 5, 3 gets assigned 4, -1 gets assigned 8, 10 gets assigned 2, and we didn't repeat any of them and assign them to a different number. When you jump to the next one, when you're identifying your domain, make sure you do from least to greatest, and don't repeat any entries. So we have 2 zeros, only put 0 down once as you write your set there. When you're identifying the range, again, from least to greatest, 1, 2, 4, 5, curly bracket, and then this one is not going to be a function because 0 got repeated and it got assigned different numbers. So this one's not a function. It got assigned 2 and 5, not a function. Flipping over to the right side there. The domain on this one is the possible x values. So since this graph continues on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever to the left, as it goes down, it'll continue to go left forever, and so your x values go all the way down to -infinity. And since it goes down forever and right forever on the right side there, it'll eventually go to infinity, and that's going to be our domain. Remember, domain's left to right, so how far to the left, how far to the right, and that's you're going to write down for your domain. The range, how far down, and how far up. This one, since the graph goes down forever, it's going to go down to -infinity. And it goes all the way up to this max value up here, which is at 3. And so your range goes from -infinity up to 3. Whoops. I have it there. What is the x-intercept? This one has 2. They're right there. And you're just going to have to make your best guess on those. I think the left one there is -2.75 or -2 3/4. And the right one is the same but positive, so 2.75, 0. Those would be my x-intercepts, those 2 points. The y-intercept is this top point here, which is the point 0, 3. And then this one has an absolute max, which we've already written down, being 0, 3. And that one's done. Jumping over to the next one, the domain. Again, since the graph continues on forever to the left, it goes from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity because it continues to go right forever as well. The range, same thing, because the line doesn't ever reach a highest point or lowest point. It just goes up and down forever in opposite directions there. So your range is going to go from negative infinity to positive infinity. X-intercept is that where it crosses the x-axis, which is the point -2, 0. The y-intercept's right there where it crosses the y-axis, which is the point 0, 2. And this does not have an absolute max or min. It doesn't have either, so I'm going to put none, because it continues on forever, up and down. I hope that review is good for you and you got out what you wanted.